Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yasura Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yasura Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamunatira Banachari Jamunatira Bhunachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Sisi Radha Madhava ki Sisi Radha Giridhari ki Oh Premanandi Jayo Vishnupad Paramhamsa Parivrajakachaja Ashokata Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Bhai Charanaravinda Bhakti Vedānta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Paramhamsa Parivrajakachaja Ashokata Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Brinda ki Jai Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai Samveda Bhakti ki Jai Gaura Premanandi all glories to the assembled devotees all glories to the assembled devotees all glories to the assembled devotees all glories Sri Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. It's a drought. Okay. It's been a good class yesterday. We're dealing with a chapter about Jamil and the Yamadutas. Whenever you hear those sirens go off, the you know, what do you call it? ETMS? You know, the ambulance. There's probably some Yamadutas following that. It's a free ride to wherever they got to go to visit the person they're visiting. No, there are Vishnu Dutas who didn't make the grade. They're trying to help people. But the Yamadutas, they're okay. Actually, they're probably there waiting already, taking bets on whether or not they can revive him or not. They got their own schedule like that. So they're everywhere. You know, sometimes devotees see the Yamadutas. You hear stories of devotees about ready to pass away, and the Yamadutas come and get really scary. And, Prakash, this one devotee, Rasananda, was here many years. Remember Rasananda? Yeah, when he was in the hospital, and he said the Yamadutas came in the room, and he said, "You got the wrong room. I'm a devotee," and they left. That's what he said. Because, you know, it gets kind of confusing in the hospitals. You got all those rooms, and it's like, he's got the wrong room. I'm a devotee. There you go. So, okay. Hare Krishna. And what happened? Oh, okay.
I don't know, but she was saying yeah. See these
beings.
Yeah. They're coming closer. They're coming for me.
Well, by now she's probably delivered because of the lineage as being devotees. So that's for sure. Oh yes, absolutely. Absolutely. 3 generations for sure, if not more. So where are we? Srimad Bhagavatam class. Horrible classes. So we're continuing and this is kind of like the preface to the Ajamil story, history. So Srimad Bhagavatam, 6th canto, 1st chapter, 11th verse. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Sri Badarayani Uvacha. Sukadev Goswami, the son of Vyasadeva, replied. I'm doing the word for word. Okay. Karmana, by fruit of activities. Karma nirharaha, counteraction of fruit of activities. Na, not. He, indeed. Adyantika, ishyate, avidvat, adhikaritvat, prayashtitam, vimarshanam. Okay. A little water will help. Hare Krishna. Shri Badarayani Uvacha. Karmana karmanirharo. Nahyanyantika ishyate. Avidvad adhikaritvat. Prayashchitam vimarshanam. Karmana karmanirharo. Nahyanyantika ishyate. Avidvad adhikaritvat. Prayashchitam vimarshanam. Karmana karmanirharo. Nahyantika ishyate. Avidvad adhikaritvat. Prayashchitam vimarshanam. Karmana karmanirharo. Nahyantika ishyate. Avidvad adhikaritvat. Prayashchitam vimarshanam. Anyone like to chant?
Karmana karmanirharo.
Karmana karmanirharo.
Yantika ishyate. Abhinvadadikaritva. Prayashchittam vimarshanam.
Shri Bhadarayani Aruvacha. Karmana karmanirharo. Yantika ishyate. Shchitam vimarshanam. Karmana karmanirharo. Nayayantika ishyate. Avidvadadikaritvat. Prayashchitam vimarshanam. Anyone else? Online? Okay, we'll go through these again, because I was spacing out before. Shri Badarayani Uvacha. Sukadeva Goswami, the son of Vyasadeva, replied, Karmana, by fruit of activities. Karma nirharaha, counteraction of fruit of activities. Na, not. He, indeed. Atyantikaha, final. Ishyate, becomes possible. Avidvat adhikaritvat, from being without knowledge. Prayashchitam, real atonement. Vimarshanam, full knowledge of Vedānta. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Sukadeva Goswami, the son of Vyasadeva, replied. So why is he called Badarayani? Does anyone know that? Yes. And what's a Badarayani tree? It's a special berry tree, all growing throughout that ashram. It's like Apple Valley or something like that. So that's why that area, it's all these beautiful, called Badarayani, beautiful berry trees and surrounding the ashram, and that's how you got the name. So, yeah. So, he says, my dear king, since acts meant to neutralize impious actions are also fruitive, they will not release one from the tendency to act fruitively. Persons who subject themselves to the rules and regulations of atonement are not at all intelligent. Indeed, they are in the mode of darkness. Unless one is freed from the mode of ignorance, trying to counteract one action through another is useless, because this will not uproot one's desires. Thus, even though one may superficially seem pious, he will undoubtedly be prone to act impiously. Therefore, real atonement is enlightenment and perfect knowledge, Vedānta, by which one understands the supreme absolute truth. Purport. The Guru, Shukadeva Goswami, has examined Pariksit Maharaj, and it appears that the king has passed one phase of the examination by rejecting the process of atonement because it involves fruitive activities. Now, Shukadeva Goswami is suggesting the platform of speculative knowledge. Progressing from karma kanda to jnana kanda, he is proposing prayashchitam vimarshanam. Real atonement is full knowledge. Vimarshana refers to the cultivation of speculative knowledge. In Bhagavad-gītā, karmis who are lacking in knowledge are compared to asses. A little strong language there. Wake up, everyone. A little strong language. Krishna says in Bhagavad-gītā, 7th chapter, 15th verse, Namam duskutina mūḍha, that's the ass's word, prapadyate naradamaha maya pritagyana asuram bhavam asritaha. Those miscreants who are grossly foolish, lowest among mankind, whose knowledge is stolen by illusion and who partake of the atheistic nature of demons, do not surrender unto me. Thus, karmis who engage in sinful acts and who do not know the true objective of life are called mūḍhas, asses. Vimarshana, however, is also explained in Bhagavad-gītā, 15th chapter, 15th verse, where Krishna says, vedaiś sarvair aham vedyaḥ. The purpose of Vedic study is to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If one studies Vedānta but merely advances somewhat in speculative knowledge and does not understand the Supreme Lord, one remains the same mūḍha. As stated in Bhagavad-gītā 7:19, one attains real knowledge when he understands Krishna and surrenders unto him. bahūnāṁ janmanām ante jñānavān prapadyate vāsudevam sarvamiti sa mahatma sadulabha. To become learned and free from material contamination, therefore, one should try to understand Krishna, for thus one is immediately liberated from all pious and impious activities and their reactions. Om Gyantimirandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chakshul Unminitam Dena Taismai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakti Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Vanchakapatarubhascha kripasindubheva patitanam bhavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. So by your sincere wishes and hopes, I'll say something. Shukadeva Goswami, the son of Vyasadeva, answered, "My dear king, since acts meant to neutralize," answered. What was he answering? The previous verse? Okay, he was saying, okay, yeah. So that was his realization. He was saying, it's just like the elephant bathing. That's Maharaj Pariksit. Now he's expanding on that. He's saying, he's answering, "My dear king, since acts meant to neutralize impious activities are also fruitive, they will not release one from the tendency to act fruitively. Persons who subject themselves to the rules and regulations of atonement are not at all intelligent. Indeed, they are in the mode of darkness. Unless one is freed from the mode of ignorance, trying to counteract one action through another is useless, because this will not uproot one's desires. Thus, even though one may superficially seem pious, he will undoubtedly be prone to act impiously. Therefore, real atonement is enlightenment and perfect knowledge, Vedānta, by which one understands the supreme absolute truth." So one example I can think of, and not to pick on any religious system, but it's a simple example, and like all religious actions or rituals, you can take them to heart, or you can not take them to heart. But has anyone here ever done confession? Okay, not going to ask you what you confessed. It's online. Okay. But when you confess, were you told to chant a certain number of Hail Marys, or? Okay. How long? What was the biggest number you were told to chant?
Just one round of rosary.
One round. Yeah. That's what they usually tell you.
Depends on the sin. Usually.
Yeah. They got a book.
When I was young, when I was going to confession.
So they kept it to one round. Okay. It wasn't a 16-rounder. It was just one round. Okay.
I wish.
Okay. So the example given, because I mean, you could say it's a good thing. You're asking for forgiveness, and if you're sincere. But the point is, many people take advantage of that. At least the example is given, that atonement is, oh, you did something wrong. Just do this. You'll counteract it, and then you go right back to doing the same thing, because you haven't come to a higher level of realization. All you know is you canceled it out. That's the hope. Oh no, I did something wrong. Let me cancel it out. Let me atone for it. Let me atone for it. But there's no sincere search for an end to that process of sinning and atoning. Sinning. You just know that, yeah, you did something wrong. Well, you just check in the confession booth. Find out how many rounds you got to chant, and then back out at it the following week. So that's what the point being made here. And every single religion has, Prabhupada says like here, a system. Is that what he says? Rules and regulations of atonement. Everyone's got that. You do something wrong, well, you have to atone for your sins to counteract them. But the point being made is that unless one uproots the desires in the heart, it's just going to keep going on and on and on and on and on. Perpetually. So his conclusion in this verse is that real atonement is enlightenment, Prayashchitam vimarshanam, full knowledge of Vedanta. There's got to come to a higher level of understanding, otherwise it just never stops. And it's ignorance. And Prabhupada says in the purport here that those lacking in knowledge and are compared to asses. So there's a famous verse in the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad-gītā where Krishna is saying there's 4 kinds of persons who never surrender to Krishna. They just won't do it. They won't do it. They're covered in different ways. So the grossly foolish, that's the mūḍhas. Lowest of mankind, naradama, maya pritagyana, one whose knowledge is stolen by illusion, and the asuras, asura bhavam, very, very demoniac. So you got some very just foolish people, duskritina mūḍha, like that. They're just miscreant, they're just grossly foolish, don't know anything about anything. They're just going on through life, you know, very much in the mode of ignorance. And then you got the lowest of mankind, the naradamas, like that, very, very sinful personalities, like that. And then interesting one here is maya pritagyana, those who have some knowledge, education, degrees. You can call them leaders in society, whether it's leaders in religion and philosophy and whatever. But whatever knowledge they have, maya prita, that means it's stolen by illusion. It's not real knowledge. It's not real knowledge because it doesn't help anyone become free from the entanglement of material existence. It perpetuates it. That's the problem, right? Just like our society today, so much knowledge, so much information and knowledge, and they're doing so many different things, but it perpetuates the illusion. It actually makes it more attractive, right? Well, that's the whole, very a lot of misinformation. Like, who am I? That's the big one, right? Who am I? There's no billboards like that. Like, who am I? Are you a spirit? No, it's just like, no, you are this body, and you should enjoy in this material world. So, maya pritagyana, their knowledge is stolen by illusion. So it's not helping them. It's not helping anyone else. And it actually creates more problems than solving them. Prahlāda Mahārāja says that. They come up with all these solutions to problems, and the solutions are bigger problems than the original problem. Right, like that. So, if you think about it, someone has to be very, very careful. Prabhupada told probably many devotees, but on this one devotee I know, Prabhupada wrote him a letter, and one of the things he said in the letter is, keep your program simple. You got to keep it simple. You complicate things and life all of a sudden gets out of hand. So just keep things very, very, very simple. And that's the Vedic culture. The Brahminical culture especially is just very, 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 very simple. And because as soon as it gets started, complication means passion, mode of passion. We complicate everything. Let's do this and let's add that and let's do this and I'm going to do this and it gets all and this. It all gets so complicated. Just like our economy, so complicated, right? They move away from an agrarian society. You ever wonder why these civilizations, like in India and so on, go on for hundreds and thousands of years? Is it because they're backwards? No, because they have an economic system and a social system that just is perpetual. It's very, very simple, not complicated. It just keeps going on. Just keeps going on. So, but we have a very, very complex lifestyle in society. Everything's based upon all this so-called technology and industry just to make life more comfortable and more happy. But then the question is brought up, why are we taking more antidepressants and there's higher rates of suicide and people are more dissatisfied than any other time in the history of the world? Why? Something must be wrong. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that one out. You don't have to have a doctorate in psychology to figure that one out. Our lifestyle is creating so many problems because it's so complicated in the wrong way. And we just keep adding to it. No, if I just get this and get this and get it, just so this is called Maya Prityagyana. And then you have those who are asuras, which they're just determined. You know, they're determined to denounce the existence of God and to create so many problems. There's so much in the lower modes of nature. So these are why are these people condemned? Because they're so dangerous. You don't let dangerous people around. Someone walks through this door with an Uzi machine gun. Hare Krishna, would you like some prasadam? No, it's dangerous. Everyone's like, oh no. So when you fill up society with dangerous people on all levels, it's very scary. There's no peace for humanity. You know, and just ask Prabhupada about terrorists. And one thing Prabhupada said, he said, just like in the jungle, there are very dangerous animals. Just come out of nowhere and, you know, like lions and tigers and all these different. He compared the terrorists to that. They're members of human society, but they're very scary and dangerous. At any moment, they just create havoc. So that's what it's like. In an animalistic society, you're going to have some very dangerous animals that are just disturb the peace. So that's what these asuras are. That's why they're condemned. And society is very, very dangerous. So now all these classes engage in sinful activities. What's a sinful activity? It's an activity that restricts your advancement in life. That's a sin. That's just, you know, that's what it is. I mean, there's so many connotations in Western society and this and that, but get right down to it. That's a sin. Just like gluttony is a sin, right? There's a list of sins in the Bible, right? Like gluttony and lying and this and bearing falsehood. So they list them. Is there seven? 7 deadly sins. I should have asked you. You're like that. Okay. Not that you perform them, but just that being brought up as a nice Catholic like that. You got to memorize those, you know, that's the 7 sins. So like gluttony, it's a sin, right? Why is that? It destroys your health. It destroys your health and you know, your life and so on. It just shouldn't do it. So, you know, on different levels, there's sins on the material level, there's sins on the spiritual level, but there are certain things which block our progression and the progression of other living entities. So they shouldn't be done. They're hurtful. Sins are things that are hurtful, and people go, no, I'm having a good time. You know, having a good time. Let's have a few drinks, right? And then all of a sudden there's a car accident. Just like I was sitting in the car this morning, chatting my japa, and then way down the street I heard this bam. Car ran into something. It was all alone. There was no other car. Just hit a signpost or something. So, you know, I'm sure he was a little inebriated, you know. Fortunately, didn't hit anyone. So all these different things are very, very hurtful. So ignorance and foolishness, we're trying to get away from that. And this belief that I just go on doing whatever I want to do and I can atone for it is another type of foolishness, or Prabhupada says ignorance. It's a great type of ignorance. And the only way to actually end all of this is by cultivating knowledge. And Prabhupada says there's, you know, the beginning of knowledge, this vimarshayam, is that what the word is? Vimarshanam. Vedānta, perfect Vedānta, and unless one progresses beyond something superficial or impersonal, one also won't make it. The real end of knowledge, this verse from the 15th chapter, this vedaiś sarvair aham viveja Vedānta krid veda vedaiva. Krishna is saying, I am the source of the Vedas, the compiler of the Vedas. By the Vedas I am to be known. So he's the goal of all Veda or all knowledge. That's Krishna. So unless one cultivates that, one's missing the point. It's not actually knowledge. In fact, that's described over and over again in the Bhagavad-gītā, Bhagavatam, so many different literatures. We can get lost in this pursuit of knowledge. You see this when you speak to educated people, even people educated in the Vedas. You know, Vedic culture, Hindus and so on, learned, and they don't know. They absolutely do not know anything about what the real goal of the Vedic knowledge is and Krishna and so on. They don't know. They just, because it's so, it's an illusory energy, and illusory energy is attractive. Just like for the fruitive worker, fruitive enjoyment's attractive. For the jnani, knowledge. You know, just it is like that encounter between the Digbijay and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, right? The big learned scholar, he actually has an entourage. You know, just like you see these pictures of the big fighters, and they got all these people following him, like his agents and this. So in the previous times, there were these big scholars, and they would actually have an entourage follow them from village to village and town to town, and they'd have these big debates and everything. It was a big thing. So, he was traveling all over India trying to defeat all these different scholars. And you can imagine his pride in himself, how Mother Saraswati, in fact, he was upset after he was defeated by Nimai. But he arrives, and everyone's afraid to debate with him, so they leave town. And they just leave Nimai there. And by Krishna's arrangement, by his arrangement, so he meets him on the bank of the Ganga. And Lord Chaitanya, Nimai glorifies him, puff him up a little bit more before he deflates him. And but you can imagine, he just, off the top of his head, 100 verses, beautiful verses, not like little nursery rhymes or something, but wonderful verses in Sanskrit, just glorifying Mother Ganga, just like I said, just like the wind just came out of his mouth. 100 verses. Okay. What's something that's very, very, one of your favorite things in life? Book distribution. So I want you right now to recite 100 verses glorifying book distribution.
You can do it in Russian, but...
No, yeah. So I mean, it's like, what are you talking about? But he had, so blessed by Mother Saraswati, he could just do that. And you can imagine, I'm sure, if after he did that, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, can you do 100 verses glorifying Lord Shiva or Vishnu? He would have done the same thing. Such knowledge and awareness and skill. It's so intoxicating. Imagine if you could do something like that. Or someone who knows, I met someone at a wedding a few months ago. She came up to me after the wedding. So, that Sanskrit was very, very nice. I know a little Sanskrit. I know, 7 or 8 different languages fluently. I said, very nice. Hare Krishna. But she had to make it a point. Now that she knows all these different languages, That's pretty intoxicating that you can speak, 5 or 6 different languages fluently. It's amazing if you think about it. But it's intoxicating that you have jnān, that kind of knowledge. But what does it lead to? What does it lead to? Is it really helping anything? I mean, it can if you engage in the Lord's service, but in and of itself, it's just another burden. Just like the Digvijay, he lost. He lost because Nimai Pandit said, well, it's a beautiful, beautiful verses and so on, but there were a few mistakes. Do you want me to point them out? He said, there are no mistakes in what I just chanted. He said, oh yeah, there's a few. He said, okay. And he calmed down a little bit. He said, okay. He said, well, in the 60-something verse, there was this, that, Bhavani. And he said, I got a few more. You want me to tell you a few more? And he said, no. And he just left. And that night he was praying to Saraswati, what happened? You let me down. This little boy, and then Mother Saraswati revealed to him that that little boy is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then he came back and surrendered. But, it's just a burden, a big burden. So, like everything else in the material world, it's a big burden. So until that's seen in that way, we just continue on. Just so many burdens keeping us in the material world. Like that, just like the old days. Who knows when they stopped it? Did they ever do it? Have a ball and chain on people, or is that just the cartoons? Do you ever know? Did they ever do that?
We're doing it in Louisiana up until not that long.
The South, I believe it. Okay, chain with a ball and chain. Couldn't run very. Yes, that was there. Remember the old ball and chain? I don't know, it was just cartoons or whatever. But you imagine, material life means the more you have, it's like the bigger the ball. I mean, it's one thing you see, that people pick up the ball and run with it, the chain, and try to escape. But you imagine having a ball that big, or that big. So the more we expand our material world that we create around us, whether it's through fruitive activities or even through knowledge, it's just the ball gets bigger. And sometimes we're very proud of that. You know, you're in prison, and Dimitri's got a ball this big. Balaram's got one this big. And I got one this big. And I'm going, look how big my ball is. And they're all laughing. You'll never get out of here. Balaram's easy. He's going over the fence. He's just got one about that big. Dimitri's has to run a little bit. But he's strong. But I got this big one, and I'm thinking, just look at me. Look at the size of my ball and chain. But what is it? You're never going to get out. You're never going to get out. So we have to reduce the size of that to the point where it's nothing. Like that. And that doesn't mean we become fools, we have no money. And that just means understand Krishna's the goal and everything should be used in his service. That's what that means. That's how you shrink the size of the ball. Because by your karma, by the grace of Krishna, you may be given a lot of things, many, many different things. But use them all in the service of the Lord, and then you can get out. That's what it's all about. So, and Prabhupada says at the very end here, to become learned and free from material contamination, therefore one should try to understand Krishna, for thus one is immediately liberated from all pious and impious activities and their reactions. Now there's a story in the Krishna book, specifically one pastime, which was put in there to illustrate this point, and that's Maharaja Nriga, the king, who got turned into a lizard. Remember that? And he was pulled out of the well by Krishna's grandchildren and so on, right? When they were playing. He was a very, very, very pious king. And it said his piety was, and he used to give thousands and thousands of cows in charity and do so much. I mean, he was heading to heaven. He was definitely heading to heaven. And then what happened one time is one of the cows he gave away wandered back into his herd from the Brahmin he had given it to, and he gave it to another Brahmin. Now, I don't know how the Brahmin identified that cow, because a lot of times cows look pretty much the same, right? But anyways, all of a sudden there's this big fight going on. This one Brahmin said, wait a second, you just gave that Brahmin a cow you gave me last week. That's mine. And the Brahmin said, no, it's mine. And there's a big fight going on. The king's thinking, well, I'll give each of you, thousands of cows. Just stop fighting and please, because he knew he's going to get in a lot of trouble. To give, property you already gave to someone, was that called regifting? Don't ever do that. So, he gave in charity, and then it came back and he gave it again. So it's like, whoa, you're not supposed to do that. And he was thinking, what kind of... And they wouldn't do it. They just became very upset with him, very, very upset, and they just walked away. So interesting lessons in that story about the king and about the Brahmins and Krishna making this arrangement. But what happened was, at the time of death, he was asked, would you want to enjoy your results of your pious activities, which are practically unlimited, or do you want to suffer your sins? So if you land up in this position, think about what you're going to say. He said, let me just get those sins out of the way, okay? Then I can just enjoy like anything for a long, long time. So he chose the sins. And that sin of, that whole thing with giving the cow twice, his reaction was he became a lizard in a well right outside Dwarka. And the Krishna's grandchildren were playing, and they saw this lizard in there, and they brought Krishna, and they pulled him out. And just by touch of Krishna's hand, he turned back into like a demigod. And that was Maharaj Nriga, and he told the whole story. Or Krishna told the story, and that was the whole story there about, if you don't ever dare take the property of a Brahmin, this is what's going to happen. And I don't know, this is Dravita's our editor, but it says there, isn't it, Balaram, take birth as a worm in stool for so many lifetimes if you steal from a Brahmin? The story of Maharaj Nriga, yeah, it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. So fortunately he was delivered, but Prabhupada says in its commentary that this story was in there just to show how foolish or unsure fruitive activities are. Because he was setting himself up for a long time in heaven in just one discrepancy, and he tried to rectify, and he couldn't even do it. He tried his best, and look what happened to him. Yeah, you know. I just think that Krishna's pastime. I mean, they each offered, you know, like 1,000 or 10,000 cows, not to fight anymore, this or that. So, I mean, I heard one lecture, Vedānta Maharaja was saying also, you know, it's like a lesson to the king. Why, you know, he wasn't watching his herds? You know, cows give away, and then they wander back in. I mean, it could be happening a lot. You got to be careful what you do, you know. So that's one historical pastime that's put in there specifically to learn how is never sure. It's never sure. And this whole thing of atoning and karma, we're still in a mess in this material world. It's all a mess. As soon as we realize that, Krishna consciousness becomes a lot easier. The material world is a mess. It's a big mess, and we're in the middle of it, deep in the middle of it. So, yeah, what to do, and just making arrangements. The Bhagavatam gives some examples. Just shifting the burden. Surfer at one time, right? You carry the surfboard. Then you move it over here. Put it on your head. Put it on this arm. Put it on that arm. It's still the surfboard weighing, but you're shifting and think, that feels a lot better. But you're still carrying the burden. So material life means you shift the burden. Right? Democrats are in office 4 years, shift the burden. Put the Republicans in, shift the burden back to Democrats. You know, but it's just the burden just gets shifted. It doesn't become absolved or done away with, or nothing gets solved. It just keeps going around and around. They put different labels on everything, but it's the same old. And it gets worse and worse as ignorance and passion increase. It just multiplies it. Like vermin, is that what they say? It's pretty bad. But hey, Krishna. So fortunately, we've all been blessed with the Srimad Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada's translation and purports, and the Hare Krishna mantra, in service to the lordships and our spiritual masters, and there's hope for us. This will come up. This will come up in this chapter about don't ever use Krishna consciousness as atonement for our foolishness. Don't do that. That's bad. That's the worst of all the offenses, right? Yeah. So we don't want to do that. We don't want to, just... So, gone over time, as usual. Need a judge out there to go like this when I had gavel or a gong or something, or spitball, remember like that? No, I'm only joking. Don't do that. Don't do that at all. We used to have a squirt gun in Bhagavatam class back in the 80s. Yeah, devotees fall asleep, working so hard. Okay. Sometimes the speaker, okay. Like that. Really? Oh, yeah. Who?
I won't. I'm not.
No. Okay. Not naming names. Fall asleep. In Christian churches, the old days here, back in the pilgrims and all that, probably for quite some time, they had a long stick. Because the church used to go on for hours on Sunday. You went to church for like 5-6 hours. That Bhagavatam class was long. And on one end of the stick was a feather. Now the other stick was a ball, metal ball. So first they try to wake you up with a feather. If that didn't work around, they turn the stick around and bop you on the head. So it worked. Like that. So questions, comments? Everyone's happy? We can end here. Anything on Zoom?
Hare Krishna.
Oh, that escaped. Yes, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Dharmasetu Prabhu, thank you very much. You're very kind. Dandavat pranam. Prabhu, related to the purport you chose for today, 6:111. The quote from the purport is, quote, "The purpose of Vedic study is to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead," end quote. So based on this, my question is, there is a shloka in Bhagavad-gītā where Krishna chants to Arjuna that more or less like this. I don't have it by memory, I'm sorry. He chants that, I know everything and everyone, but me no one knows.
Yes.
So when you read a shloka like this chanted by Krishna himself, how do you accommodate that the quote I just gave to you, that the purpose of Vedic study is to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, when Krishna himself is saying that me no one knows?
Okay. That's a very good question.
Thank you, Prabhu. You're very kind.
You should get an extra helping of halava today with your breakfast for that question.
It's my favorite. Together with sweet rice, halava and sweet rice are my favorite preparations. Thank you.
We'll get an extra helping today for that question. Now, there's two ways on Dvita Prabhu can. Is there a microphone there? Yeah. Okay. You can answer this. So there's two ways I look at this, or two ways I understand it. One is that in that verse, when Krishna says, nobody knows me, in other words, the rarity of anyone even approaching Krishna. Krishna says that in the Bhagavad-gītā also. Out of many thousands and millions of liberated souls, hardly one is a devotee. So it's very, 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 very rare. And the other is that who knows Krishna? Right? Even in full. It's impossible. Krishna reveals himself to every living entity according to that person's relationship with him, but no one knows Krishna in full. In fact, in Bhagavad-gītā, Arjuna says, you know yourself by your own potencies and so on. But that's another thing too. No one knows me, because who can know Krishna in full? We're praying that we can know Krishna enough to surrender to him, and that always increases more and more, but we'll never come to the end. And actually, devotees don't want to come to the end. They're not interested in knowing everything about Krishna, in the sense of measuring Krishna. They just want to serve Krishna. He's such a beautiful, wonderful. All the residents of Vrindavan are thinking, really trying to figure out this Krishna. How much potency does he have? They're not even concerned that he's God. He's so beautiful. In other words, as one becomes advanced in Krishna consciousness, it's no longer Krishna's God. He's just the sweetest, nicest, wonderful, dearmost friend, and I want to be with him. And that's what Krishna's looking for. That's the platform of pure love. We're not looking for knowledge is subservient to bhakti. So that's some thoughts I have on that.
Yeah. This is you'll often find things like this when he says no one knows me. It's in the realm of Manushyanam Sahaseshu Kashchijati, yet the time out of many thousands of men, one will try for, and many millions of those, one will know me in truth. So it's not no one, but in this material world, especially at this age, it's so rare that it's practically impossible to find someone who really knows Krishna in truth. I mean, Prabhupada was such a rare soul, very rare soul. And I'm thinking also because we're just about to come to this verse in our evening class, 7.1, Maya Sakta Manaparta. Now hear, O son of Prita, how by practicing yoga in full consciousness of me, with mind attached to me, you can know me in full, free from doubt. Or bahūnāṁ janmanām ante. So the idea is that what he's saying there in his verse, what he quoted was vedāḥam samatitani. That's also from the 7th chapter. Yes. I know everything that's happened in the past, everything is happening now, everything happened in the future, but me no one knows. So it's just drawing this this comparison between Krishna, who's so vastly knowledgeable, even just to try to bend your mind around it, even as devotees, it's inconceivable to know every single thing that's happened any time in the past, in all the millions of universes. Wow, plus, it's happening now. And so, no one knows me, certainly, no one can certainly know me in full, and Prabhupada even said that even Krishna doesn't know. Right. Because he's so infinite, and he's always increasing. His qualities are increasing and becoming more, so he knows at one moment and it increases like that, So it's drawing the incredible helplessness we are, especially trying to know by our own means, by the ascending process. It's impossible. And now Sukadeva is going through the different ways of neutralizing sin, and each one is throwing out. Even this, this knowledge thing that is going to be negated. The next verse, the famous verse, tapasa brahmacharya, But that's also not adequate. The only thing adequate is bhakti, which, Krishna then takes the initiative of cleaning you and keeping you clean. Otherwise, you're helpless before this material energy. So that's the idea, is that by, the living entity is infinitesimal. Okay, infinitely small? Well, yeah, but there is a measurement, 1/10,000th part of the tip of the hair. But for all practical purposes, that's the same thing, right? So that's the device being used, by this. And it's not literally that no one can ever know me, otherwise what's the point? So anyway, that's the way I understand it.
Is that good?
Dharmasetu Prabhu, today is my birthday, and you and Dravida Prabhu just gave me, with both answers, 2 matchless birthday gifts. Thank you very much, Hare Krishna.
Dirgayu Shambhava, may you have a long life in Krishna consciousness, and definitely put a candle on top of that big pile of sweet rice and halava that you're helping yourself to. Okay?
I'm 61 years old today.
61 years young. Hare
Yeah.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, we can end here. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.